Pas de problème de connexion, pas de problème de transfert de vol. Avec l'agent de voyage Tempo Afrique Travel, c'est le voyage en toute tranquillité, en toute beauté, de votre maison jusqu'à votre destination. Votre satisfaction est notre plaisir.
Hot mix mixing.
America, today is December 5th, the first Saturday of December. The first Saturday of the end of the year. So we're close to the end of the year 2020 and heading on to 2021. So hopefully everybody still keeps up that American spirit of the new revolution, or the new resolutions, I mean, as we fall into different stages of what is going on in our country. But today, I want to mainly cover about Biden's cabinet, his cabinet choice. So I'm going to go down the list on some of the people he has picked out, which are from our previous presidential as well, that are going to be coming back into the office with Biden. That is if he gets inaugurated on January the 20th. And also, I want to give you guys an update what is going on in our country right now. Of course, with the effect of the lockdown, and especially in our major cities that's been having issues like New York, California, and now in some of the southern states in the United States. So who knows if this is something that is spreading like wildfire and it's going to affect the rest of the states. Minnesota is currently on restrictions, and their lockdown is until December 13. So, but of course, it's not as crazy as New York or some of the other, cities that are more restricted. So let's get this started. So to get to the point, now I'm going to start with the entertainment industry. Now this came up to my attention a few weeks ago because I really had no idea how much the entertainment business has been hit really hard with the pandemic crisis. Until there were some reports and some people were speaking out against this lockdown, allowing the people to know that we have not been recognized, okay? And before the pre-pandemic, these are the people who made everyone laugh, created all the entertainment business. So now, to give you guys some update, like what happened to them, and how are they affected by the coronavirus pandemic? So Broadway actors are a branch of shutdown fighting for COVID relief as the coronavirus restrictions takes a huge hit in the industry. Many have spoken out on ABC due to the lockdown and how it affects their livelihood, which is pretty devastating right now. They feel like they have been forgotten. No one recognizes them anymore. As they are the people that have done so much to bring laughter and joy into the world. It's as devastating that they has not been yet recognized in this pandemic. So it's something to be alert about, because when you hear lockdown, you hear that only essential business, only essential companies are the ones that are able to open and still operate. But when you think of the other people who are doing other things in the entertainment business and regular, businesses, is they are drastically hit by the pandemic, and it's a risk. It's definitely a risk of their livelihood. So that's some of the things that were pointed out there. So now I want to go on to about the businesses that are fighting back. I don't know if you guys seen recently in the past couple of days, there has been a lot of protests going on between the business owners against the governor, the restrictions, and all of that stuff going on. So we know the news hasn't been reporting as much of what is really happening. So we're going to give you updates. And in Memphis, Tennessee, things got a little bit more heated. Okay, a Black county commissioner accused a group of white restaurants accused the white restaurant owners of being racist. So things got a little bit more racist there in Tennessee as far as, who gets to open their businesses or who is mostly opening their businesses, based on their colors, I guess. So for complaining about mask mandates, diners are now required to wear a face mask in between bites and drinks. So the face mask mandate has really gotten more strict. So even now in Minnesota, you have to wear your face mask at all time. And it can't be like below your nose either. It has to cover everything. It has to be worn properly. So what's happening here in Memphis, Tennessee, where the customers are being told to wear your face mask even between your dinner bites and your drinks. So it's no longer that restriction we had previous weeks ago where once you are seated, you can take off your face mask. That's done. So some of the states have rejected that and now added more restriction to it. So now continue on. In Erie County in New York, about 100 businesses owners showed up to a private gym to meet according to the virus rules and regulations. Instead, the health department showed up and ordered the crowd to disperse. In response, the business owners stood their ground with the demand to see a warrant and declared the health inspector to leave the property. So as these guys gathered, they kept their ground. So they do not want they do not want to disperse. They're not going to let it go. So this is some of the really battles that are going on. And going back to Memphis, Tennessee, there was a video that went viral on social media, a man that wasn't wearing a mask, but he was on a line to check out. And the standbys were yelling at him, saying, "Put your mask on, put your mask on." And he refused to put on his mask. And dramatically, what happened next? Someone came and threw a bucket of water over his head. That was quite scary. So, but it's circling around on social media, and this is becoming a silver unrest between the citizens of the United States. So, continuing more. So, many more are suffering under Governor Cuomo adding restrictions that there will be no more indoor dining after he has already imposed a 10 p.m. curfew last few weeks ago. So the restrictions have gotten more strict. So at this point, part of New York counties have been marked as an orange zone map. This is also circling around in social media as well. If you happen to caught it or run to it, there's a map, and the orange part of the county are the ones where the restrictions have been added on even more. And so to continue on with the more updates, where these businesses cannot operate, when you go a block to the other side, you are able to order a hamburger. Now, sounds more like Jim Crow's law. So, has a segregation that we have in the past where only one certain area that is labeled as the red flag area have more restrictions and different rules compared to another area. So this is one of the evidence you're seeing currently now in our 2020 crisis that is happening, where in New York, this specific county is marked as the orange zone. So in that orange zone, there's more restrictions and a lot of businesses are shut down, so they can't operate. But if you walk a block from that, you can order a hamburger, the restaurants are open. So this is bringing back the segregation. And when you would think that some of these restrictions that are being put out there should be equal to all the citizens, but then it really wouldn't make sense draining everyone down to the ground, is what it seems like. So now moving on. So meanwhile in Michigan, a business owner interrupted a local newscast on Wednesday, stating that the government have forced him to either sacrifice his business or break the law. This video circulated on social media as well. there was a news reporter reporting, and this guy appears out of nowhere and stood his ground and decided that his voice needed to be heard. So he went closer up until the news reporter actually interviewed him, speaking on his opinions on the lockdown. So the frustrations has gone pretty more dramatic. Labeling the government restrictions with his latest lockdown as tyranny. While stating that the federal and government that was meant to help small businesses stay afloat through the pandemic was wasted on special interests and campaign donors, he continued saying. They abandoned me and they put me in a position where I have to fight back. Okay, these are words coming from him as he was stating his opinions to the reporter on this national television. And Morris told a local news reporter, "I feel everybody needs to stand up. You could have given me money and I'll gladly walk away for 60 days and let the virus settle down. I'm not going to do it alone." Okay, so these were his words, and he's made some really good points there. So if we're going to go through a lockdown and these really extreme harsh restrictions and losing the livelihood, which are also essential to these people, then you would expect that the government should have a backup in how these people are going to recover later or how they can survive in the meantime, especially if it's really all about containing the virus. So this was his message for American business owners. This isn't an order, this is a conspiracy. This is a tyranny. When asked if he had a message for other business owners as well, this was his main message. Wake up, stand up, this is America, be free. So he stood his ground and spoke very clear and well on that national television. And I think a lot of us are really starting to forget that in America, it is a land where you have the right to defend yourself if you feel like the law is against you or your will in any way. And a lot of people have not been speaking up for themselves lately. So with these governments giving all these strict restrictions, and even some that don't really make sense, or even without backup, it's totally understandable. Of course, we definitely want to get COVID contained because COVID is real and it's affecting a lot of people, and some people are dying from it based on their health condition. But it's America. There should be a backup. It shouldn't be anything like the third world countries where you go on a lockdown, but there's no backup. There's no stimulus. There's no money being thrown out there. Okay. And the House of Representatives lately, they have been working on making an agreement to send up a relief bill to the Americans, as this is the most highly rated with flu, cold, and COVID together. But they couldn't come to an agreement. So we're still watching close on that and see if they're going to send those stimulus to the American people. Continuing on. Now, to get on to the next topic, these are some of the radical demands that are going on as well. So the Democrat plan is to change America. As Kamala noted, their ticket will appeal Trump tax cuts, which would be a concern to taxpayers. This also involves changing the Constitution and passing legislation to things like taking away your First Amendment rights, protecting their gun rights to defend themselves from the radical mob, and socialism, selling American jobs overseas, and high censorship. And what I meant by that, so the tax cuts for many American workers and the American family was reduced very low, so that more families can have more money and more paycheck into their pocket and don't have to work, 2 jobs or not being able to see their kids or spend time with their kids because they're working all these multiple jobs. So that has been cut from your taxes, where it is highly reduced. And also another one with American jobs that are being sold overseas. Previously, many American jobs were done overseas. So this is an example and very alerting, and it kind of opened your eyes to, some of the problems like we have in Africa. So we have Chinese that are creating all of these jobs in Africa and across the country, building the economy. But who's working in those jobs? The Chinese people. Only the Chinese people are working on those jobs. So when you have jobs that you are creating in that specific country, it should be the people benefiting from them. Okay. In some of our previous videos, we talked specifically about this, where all these jobs that are being created in Africa, where the people of Africa don't even work in those jobs. They don't even work in those jobs. So if the people don't work in those jobs, how are they supposed to grow? How are they supposed to make use of their degrees that they have been going to school for so many years and actually build a life for themselves? Okay. So this is slightly similar to what is happening here in the United States, with many jobs being taken overseas and be done overseas. Okay. So in order to keep the American economy afloat and keeping the people of the United States at a stable rate to be able to live their livelihood and to be able to live free in their country, is to keep the jobs here. Made in the USA, worked, and the people work in the USA for them. That's pretty much the best way to state it. So, and of course the high censorship. So the high censorship it's gotten more and more higher right now on social media. So more people are less likely to speak out, and whenever somebody speaks out, there's constant attacks going on. Okay. And if Facebook gets a hold of it or anything like that, they're going to try to, demonetize it, or they're going to try to cut it down and things like that. So the high-tech censorship is another way of silencing the freedom and also taking away the freedom as well, what we already have in the Constitution. So these changes also include a person of faith may not be able to practice their freedom of religion. Now, I hope everybody is aware of this and really have thought of it really hard, that, some of the people are out there making fun of the Christians as they continue to preach, as they continue to to spread out encouragement message, but not realizing that this may not only affect Christians. Okay, we have other people who practice different faiths, like Muslims, Judean Christian, Judaism. Hinduism, other different religions from around the world. Okay, it all fall in the same category. When one thing happens to one specific group, you can't undermine that. It may not happen to another group later. Okay, it all starts small until it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Okay. So as America, that's part of the freedom of speech and being able to have your First Amendment rights, is to be able to practice your religion, be able to have your own opinion, being able to speak your mind, okay? Because everyone is equal. There's no right or wrong in what you said. It's how you say it and how you interpret it, okay? It's how it is put out there. So it's all good versus evil, as we all can see now happening in this world, okay? And it depends on what side you stand on as well. So these are some of the changes that are taking place. And if you guys remember in previous of the election campaigns, Biden Harris was asked multiple times if they were going to pack the Supreme Court, but refused to give a clear or straight answer. So we still don't know exactly what's going to happen with the Supreme Court. Because as you guys remember, who was sworn in at the Supreme Court? Amy Coney Barron by Donald Trump. So it looks a lot more like there was a plan that was made before the whole election came about. So if Biden was to get back in the office, the only thing he could probably do is pack the Supreme Court. Because even if he leads on and gets inaugurated and becomes the president of the United States, it's going to be very hard for the Democrat to even pass legislations, with the Republican controlling majority of the states and also controlling the Supreme Court. Okay, so while Biden prepares for the transition, Georgia has become a battleground to overturn the Senate. This is what you hear a lot lately going on in some of these people who have their own platforms and their own broadcast network, and also the lawyers and the attorneys that are speaking a lot in Georgia right now. So Georgia has become the battleground, and this is about the Senate. So continuing on with that. So, while it is about the Senate, since the Democrat knows that it will be difficult to pass legislation in their agendas if the Republican Party controls the head of the Senate. Not only that, there are 74 million Americans who may not even accept Biden's policies. This is where the country is equally divided in a half. With Trump still in politics, either now or even afterwards, the legal process is to market historical evidence for the American people to understand the amount of corruption that can exist in the United States, revealing how far the Democrats have gone and how the government system have failed us. So all these corruptions and all these evidence that you guys hear going on, and how the political game have gone completely dirty and just way out of hand. All of this it's going to make a history. It's going to be marked and written down in the history. And it could be traumatizing for the 74 million who voted for Trump as well, to know that, wow, how are we ever going to trust our election again? So that's going to be something that's going to replay in some of the people's mind. Okay. Now, Trump does have a chance of four more years. So that's something to throw out there. While some of the conservatives have lost faith on trying to convince him to pardon and try campaigning for 2024, since he is eligible as an incumbent president. So even if he lost this race and Biden takes over the office, he could still run again in 2024. But of course, he demanded and stood his ground and said, you know what, I'm not worried about 2024. I'm focusing on right now. I'm focusing on what is happening at the moment. So if he lost, he lost. And if he wins, he wins. So, and we won't know all of this until January 5th. January 5th is the day. It's going to get pretty interesting. So in my understanding, both parties are definitely aiming for a rebirth of America. So, except one is willing to do whatever they can to get the power and to get in the office, while the other is fighting against their opponent as well. So to go on to some of the latest news, you guys probably heard about Biden. So Biden had a foot injury while playing with his dog. A week ago, the news outlets reported that Biden has broken his foot while playing with his dog, Major. During this interview with CNN, he stated that it has resulted in a hairline fracture and had to be on a walking boot for a little while. This was President's response to it, and President-elect Joe Biden said on Thursday that he fractured his foot after tripping on a bath mat following a shower after the weekend and while chasing his dog Major. Explaining the incident and said it wasn't a very exciting story. Yeah, it's really not that much of an exciting story because I think this just only numbered his days. And, and ever since then, we haven't really heard much about Joe Biden. So quick recovery to him, because he's currently right now on a boot walk. And as they found that, some of the bones are fractured there, and, we'll be waiting to see more updates, or to hear more updates actually, on how that goes after his couple of doctor visits. So that's where Joe Biden is at right now at the moment. So now, to move further more into the more interesting topic, as I mentioned last week that I wanted to name out some of the cabinets, and you could kind of do your own research on your own and figure out who these people are and how are they going to change our country and what benefit do they have into the United States. And so the cabinet choice definitely explains on what we can expect in the next 4 years of Biden's presidency. So here are some of the lists that I have wrote down for you. So the chief of staff for Joe Biden when he was vice president, Ron Klain, was also the Obama administration's during the Ebola response coordinator during the outbreak in 2014 and 2015. So, and he's back. So he'll be working with Joe Biden. Former Federal Reserve Chair Janet Yellen will serve as Biden's Treasury Secretary, the first woman to lead the Department of the Treasury, but the first person to have headed the head of the Treasury, the Central Bank, and the White House Council of Economic Advisors, the three most powerful economic positions in the nation. So we have the first woman there on Joe Biden's team, and got the strongest position based on what was stated in the article. Anthony Blinken has a Secretary of State, Biden's national security advisor when he was vice president, and President Obama's deputy Secretary of State from 2015 to 2017. Blinken's nomination suggested a return to the multilateralism of the Obama administration. So, John Kerry has special presidential envoy for climate, a new cabinet level role in which the former Secretary of State will persuade skeptical global leaders burned by the Trump administration hostility towards climate science that the United States is prepared to resume its leadership role. And the last person I'm going to mention to you guys is Alejandro Mayorkas, the Deputy Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security under Obama, would serve as the department's head, becoming the first Latino and the first immigration to do so, as a director of U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Service under Obama. So those are the cabinet choice. You know, as we go on, you know, we'll probably hear from them what their plans are, what their job is going to be, so we have an idea what they're going to do during the Biden administration. Now, to continue on, as we know now that Joe Biden is the president-elect of the United States, and you know, we don't know for sure what's going to happen during the inauguration, during the January 20 inauguration. Now we're going to give you guys some possibility of why Trump can overturn the election and be able to run for another 4 years as well. So here's some of the things I want to lay out for you. If Trump lawsuits do not prevail in local and federal courts, he could possibly win in Congress. Each state Congress will cast one vote. Noting there's more Republican states than Democrat, GOP now has unity control in 24 states. Both state legislators and governments are Republicans. Now you can probably understand why Georgia is a huge battleground right now for the Senate, because many of the states here in the United States, a lot of them are Republican. So if this case doesn't prevail in the local courts or the federal, and it goes to Congress, each state is gonna have a vote, and that's where Trump has a chance of overturning the election. So the GOP cleaned up in state legislations and flipped 10 House seats, which can give Trump a stronger case against the Democrat. So there you have it. Now continue on with the lawsuits and what is going on. So to hear from the Dream Team, which they're calling out the Dream Team, the lawyers and the attorneys that have been fighting really hard on these lawsuits, submitting new lawsuits after they have been rejected multiple times, and they keep submitting more lawsuits and still get rejected many times. So the media are constantly reporting that there is no fraudulent or evidence that the election was rigged. This week, they finally admit there's maybe some fraud, but not enough to overturn the election. CNN, for the first time, admits there's a possibility of Trump's second term. This is CNN that has been going against anything that is Trump, finally calls it out that there's actually a potential that Trump may come back and be the president of the United States for another 4 more years. So as the world continues to ignore the evidence, sworn affidavits under the oaths of perjury are the evidence that the election was rigged. So a lot of people who've been hearing from the mainstream media that there's no evidence, there's no fraud, and that they can't prove it, many of these people who have signed these affidavits, they could go to jail if they lie. That's what they're for. You sworn in, you signed the affidavits, you tell the people that you're going to tell the truth, no matter how much you get intimidated or how much you get threatened, which is happening to a lot of us. So most of them now are coming out as, blind whistleblowers, and also their name is being protected as anonymous for their own safety. Okay, but by law, if you sign the affidavits, you're under the perjury of the oath. Okay, so if you lie or whatever during your testimony, you could go to jail. So that's quite evidence enough to show the people. So whistleblower coming forward and testifying in court hearings are also an evidence. Some of these court hearings that was going on back to back last week, there was one in Pennsylvania, there was one in Michigan, there was one in Arizona, and some of the states have more county hearings as well. In front of the state legislators, and all these affidavits, the people who have signed the affidavits came out and gave their testimonies. So the testimonies they gave out is pretty mind-blowing. Okay, but the media has not covered any of them. That's why you don't hear about it. And all of these cases, they're still going on right now. So they have until December 13, okay, to appeal everything in court and have these testimonies be testified in court, okay? And they're not being covered. So on December 3rd, Sidney Powell and Lin Wood, I don't know if any of you guys have seen those two. They held a conference briefing in Georgia, and it got pretty biblical, okay? This is where you'll probably hear, one of the bandit hashtags that you don't see anymore on any social media, including YouTube itself, to release the Kraken, okay? Sidney Powell and Lin finally have released all the things they have discovered with the Dominion and all the frauds that's been happening. So they held a conference and, to speak out to the people and to explain to them what was going on. And I'm not sure if the news actually, well, of course, they're not going to cover it because they're totally against anything Trump. So Sidney Powell explained the Dominion voting system, which were made outside of United States. A machine made in China by the CCP, which has been used during the election of Hugo Chavez. So if you guys heard of Hugo Chavez, he's the president of Venezuela, who reigned in 1999 until 2013. So he stood in power because these machines are capable of putting fake ballots or counterfeits or anything impossible way to get the power. So it helped Hugo Chavez with the Dominions. So during this election of 2020, the machine is able to switch votes from Trump to Biden and able to accept counterfeit ballots. And a counterfeit ballot means some of these were printed out and they were printed by people that were either dead already, or they don't even live at a certain address, or warehouses, or other different, anywhere they could get an address location to write down whoever the people are in order to cast the ballots. So the machine is able to accept any of those ballots. There were serious problems with the machine glitches and accepting ballots, unmatched signature, and illegal ballots. The recount, when we had the recounts, they were set by precinct to have more accurate results until December 8th, until the 13th. So some of these ballots are still being counted. Right now, the only thing they are demanding for is for them to be audited, that the signature need to matches whoever signed the ballot. So they have come to discover that the signatures do not match the person that they have listed on there. So, as you guys know, Trump still hasn't conceded. Has the legal battle continue? He stated very clearly that the only way he would concede is if Biden can prove his 80 million votes are legal. In that case, then the election was won fairly. So that was his word, and he said, I will not concede. But if Biden could prove that his 80 million votes were legal and not fraud, and there's no illegal votes counted in that as well, then the election won fairly, and he will concede. So, Rudy Giuliani, who has become one of the top attorneys that is hitting up the internet lately, he's a former mayor of New York City from 1994 to 2001. Took on the court hearing in Pennsylvania, Arizona, and Michigan this week. Rudy Giuliani called Philadelphia a place that is well known for cheating, and gathered 300 affidavits, declarations of our own statements that show there were enough improper votes to overturn the results of the election. This was what Rudy Giuliani said in front of the hearing, in front of the legislations. He also stated during the hearing, we've checked cemetery for dead people who have voted, which was swung for Joe Biden. And that became a laughing stock in the mainstream media, where you guys probably have seen a picture of him with his hairline, and there's like some grease or something coming down his hairline. So continuing on, New York Times reported the claims as false. State election officials said they have seen no proof that 20,000 deceased people voted in the 2020 election. Mainstream continue to downplay this mind-blowing evidence. So the Democrat Party attorney calls Trump case a nuts. Okay, they are mocking the testimony of the sworn affidavits and Rudy Giuliani based on his hair, and of course recently claiming that he made some fart noise, and that's what you're going to see a lot in the mainstream media, is all of these mockeries that are going on when there's actually a real hearing going on, knowing how serious this hearing is, and these testimonies and these allegations that are being reported in front of these governors in their own state, or what is happening in their own state. So that's the main focus on what the mainstream media wants to tell you, rather than really paying attention to the character and the content of what is going on in the courtroom. So we all know how this is going to end. This is like it's like a movie, and we just know how the movie is going to end. So even in the most serious, highest court in the land, there's just so much mockery going on. And even if the person is mistakenly did something that could cause the audience to laugh, I just think the mockery have really gone completely out of hand and out of control. And it really shows a lot that the people of the country really have no respect for their leaders, and that's not good at all. It's definitely not good for this country. But, of course, who knows? People are going to wait until something happens in order for them to realize that maybe it was wrong. But either way, even if it was false, even if it was a lie, it's presented in the court, in the hearing. And there's no possible way you could deny that these people are just a bunch of psycho who's making up stuff. So, because that's what they're being labeled as, seriously. So, later Biden denies, and no, before I get to that part, so there was a video that was captured. Biden admits himself about the election being rigged. We are in a situation where we have put together, and you guys did it for our administration. President Obama's administration before this, we have put together, I think, the most extensive and inclusive voter fraud organization in the history of the American politics. So, the media just kind of bluntly let that go. And later on, Biden was asked about that based on what he said, and he denied it and said he misspoke his quote. So the media, mainstream, immediately accepts and simply ran with his denial. So yeah, it's another crazy claim there, you could say, If someone could say something that mind-blowing, but later denies it, I don't think any human being is capable of making a joke or saying something like that and say, haha, later, oh, I was just kidding. I didn't mean that, But there's a saying, sometimes behind a joke, there's some truth to it. All right, continue on. So the Trump rally in Georgia, there's a rally going on right now in Georgia, and this is basically have escalated even more on these lawyers and these attorneys that are speaking out and standing their ground and continue to fight this battle no matter how many times they have been slammed to the ground. So these bold lawyers and attorneys are fiercely standing their ground to defend the president and make sure we win in Georgia. On January 5th, the state of Georgia will have a choice to make that will impact the entire nation. They will either re-elect the great senators and keep the Republican Senate majority, or they will choose a path that will lead America towards socialism or even worse. So that's what's going on in Georgia right now. So January 5th is another election, but things are getting really wild over there. We have people that are moving to Georgia, they're trying to register there, and so it's a battleground of trying to win the Senate between the Democrats and the Republicans. Now, meanwhile, in the other side of the world, in Tokyo, citizens took to the streets to the state, if Joe Biden wins, China wins. Many and thousands of rallies in support of U.S. President Donald Trump were held in Tokyo on Wednesday, November 25th. This was just last week ago. There were so many rallies there. Protesting the results of the U.S. presidential election, which they also know is fraudulent. Trump supporters chanted slogans such as Trump Great while marching and carrying banners reading Trump Keep America Great 2020. So these are the rallies going on the other side of the world, fighting for Trump as well and having these rallies, including the mega march that we have here in the United States and the 74 million Americans who have voted for Trump. So this is a large amount of people, a large significant amount of people that actually believes in this man. And the left and the Democratic Party are basically saying that they're all psychos. Just like Ilhan Omar said a few days ago that all these mega marches for Trump are a bunch of clans, KKKs, okay? Which doesn't make sense because you have a mixed minority of people of color, white people, all people of background, including even the Chinese in Tokyo, okay? So if it was a Klan's rally, I'm pretty sure a lot of the people of color there would not survive that rally. So continuing on, this week the Democrats are pulling the most savage stunts. So the game gets deeper. This is like the three monkey strategies where I see no evil, I hear no evil, and I say no evil. Whatever needs to be done must be done. The residents are flooding into Georgia, pretending to be Republicans. Okay. 2 days ago, it all backfired with the video evidence that they committed a crime and got caught. So this is surging around on social media right now, including YouTube as well, with the evidence that were just revealed during the court hearing. And it was much longer than that, where in the counting room in Georgia, there were luggages that were being pulled out under the table. And it was around 1 to 2 a.m. in the morning when they were being pulled out. And there were 5 tables with each machine as they sorted through them. And within each hour, these machines are able to count up to 30,000 ballots. So if you take, 3 times 5, that becomes, I believe, 35,000 ballots. And so by 8 in the morning, that was when I believe they were done counting it then. But during that time where they were pulling out these luggages and they were counting the ballots, they didn't have any observers in the room, and it was at 2 or 3 in the morning. So for some of you guys that probably have recognized and realized that during the election night, after midnight, the counting stops. It stops in more than 7 states stopped at once. They stopped counting. So this is part of the evidence that can explain what happened between that time, why the stop counts, and when we wake up in the morning, all of a sudden, Biden is leading and has all these ballots that were added to his counts. So, and this evidence here is not being shown to you again by the mainstream media, is being considered as a conspiracy and is being denied as well. But this was some of the evidence that was presented during the court hearing that has been going on in the last few days. So that's all the update, you guys. That's what is going on in the world between both the Republican and the Democratic Party. As this election continues, what is going to happen on January 5th? Will Georgia have a recount of the election? Who's going to be inaugurated on January 20th? And this leads to a lot of concerns and a lot of questions for the American people out there, whether you're a liberal or a conservative or you stay moderate. So as we guys know now, that our country there's double standards. There's double standards going on right now. And to remind ourselves, who are the liberals, okay? Liberals are great. They're awesome. They are the life of the party in this country. They bring so much joy and entertainment in our lives. These are the liberals. Liberals are like the people. They care so much about the people. They care so much about, the laughter. These are where you have most of the progressive that are fighting for, the black rights and the minorities and things that are going on, okay? These are the liberals. Now, who are the conservatives? So the conservatives are the defender and the backbone of the country, of the land. They are the patriots that will defend their rights. Unfortunately, big tech keep hammering them down. So the conservatives are the people who knows and understands their rights in this country and willing to defend the country, okay? United States is based on liberalism and conservatives, okay? And that's what makes America great. That's what makes America unique and so different from all of the other countries in the world, okay? And it's why we have the Constitution, because we're so different here, whether you're far left or far right, where everyone is equal, okay? You have the right to speak, you have the right to own whatever you want. You have the right to grow as far as you want to go, become successful, based on the Constitution. You can go as far as you want to go. The choice is yours, okay? If you're willing to work hard and go further than that, awesome. You will go further, Everybody is held accountable based on their act, based on how they utilize their citizenships in this country as well, okay? But with the election 2020, we have gone far left, where the left are fighting for the injustice and the things that are going on in our system that we see in the front line, okay? Now, it doesn't mean that those things are not happening or they don't exist, okay? As we can see in a shallow thinking, if you go to most destructive neighborhoods, the most poverty, the people that live there are mostly black people, okay, and the minorities. If you go to New York, there's so many projects. There's subsidized housing. There's Section 8. There's all of these things that the system has been giving to these people. But again, there's still destruction, there's crimes going on, there's a lot of problems going on. So we see that, it's very clear, and that is something that needs to be addressed, and the left are addressing that, okay? Where you have the right, the conservatives who believes in hard work and the tradition and the things that makes us great and believes that we're all equal, okay? And these people are thriving in most of these Republican states, and some of them, don't see what's going on in the left or in the poverty world because maybe they've never been there. But there are conservatives who start from scratch or start from nothing, and they work their way up and realize that they can see from the both side of what the left are fighting for and what the conservatives are fighting for. But socialism is not of United States, okay? And I think this is where a lot of people are completely forgetting that that we have an enemy between the left and the right, which is the socialism. Now, to give you guys a little bit more about what socialism really plays out. So, with socialism is mostly what you see in other countries, okay? Socialism is against freedom. There is no middle class. It's all about power while the rulers gain and the poor suffer, okay? But of course, we live in a millennial age, in a generational age where we live in such a wonderful country where everything was given to us, with such privilege that we have, being as Americans, that we don't even understand completely what is happening outside of the United States and why socialism is something you do not want in this country, okay? But until both sides recognize that socialism is something that we do not want in this country, where you have governors that are tyrants and giving you rules that don't even make sense just to control the people, when the people are smart enough and capable to make their choices, and basically telling you that you're stupid and that we're gonna go ahead and tell you guys what to do, okay? That's something we have to recognize. That's something we have to recognize. Who is the enemy of the people, okay? Both left and right as well. And I believe you guys remember when we had the first lockdown, that was the first time coronavirus was known as the novel virus. Nobody knew what it was. Nobody knew what it was capable of doing. We couldn't even trust China because China was not being transparent. So America pretty much had to figure out on their own. But we did get the instruction from the CDC guidelines and, how you should protect yourself, and also how you should wash your hands, and the 6 feet distancing, wear your face mask, and so on and so. So we got those instructions, and most Americans, as long as we have the instructions, we're pretty good at following them, okay? But to have it get to the point where it becomes a civil unrest or a civil war, where someone is being threatened because they're not wearing a face mask in public, their action will result in their accountability. Okay, that's what we know is every human being has the ability to know what they're doing, whether it's right or wrong, and that their actions will follow through later. So to continue on, a friend of mine actually brought some of this to my attention. So as we continue to talk about these and how we can, come to understand each other and agree to disagree in the next couple of months, because it's going to get really intense, and I believe that this is the moment that people really need to start speaking out, because the silence is causing a lot of people paranoia and assumption and things that are going on in the country. So she brought up to my attention. Okay. And this is the moment we should really sit down and really think hard. What is happening? What is happening in this country? Okay. So we are completely divided. We see that. We are polarized. We see that. And allowing socialism to bring out the worst of far left and far right. And I believe we see that too as well. So if we ask ourselves these questions, what do you think the future of this country is? Okay. And, these questions really had me thinking as well, because we really don't know what the future of this country is. But there's still a lot of people that actually understands what is going to happen, okay? You even have foreigners who moved into this country as migrants and realize that, the American people here do not understand what socialism is. These are the things that we run away from to come into the United States, knowing that that's the only country in the world where you can be free, where you can actually live a life without fear. Okay? And these people have important voice. It's important to listen to them as well. Hear their stories out, okay? Because there's many minorities that are supporting Trump right now and all these mega rallies as they speak out to know that we do not want corruption in this country, okay? And also, furthermore question is, so being ruled by tyrants, okay? This is what brings out the 1776. So you've probably been hearing that lately. 1776 is the beginning of revolution, that there might be a revolutionary war, there might be a civil unrest. 1776, to give you guys some information for those that don't know what it is, okay, is an American Revolutionary War that happened at that time, okay, to be free from the Great Britain tyrants, okay. Great Britain were taxing people high taxes, and they were thriving off it, okay. So it was another battle to cut off taxes, and to create all men equal, okay. Around that same year, declarations of the independence was also the 13 states that came out and fought against slavery, the anti-slavery. Vermont was the first state to fight against anti-slavery, okay. So 1776 was an American Revolutionary War to fight against the Great Britain and to also eliminate these tyrants that wanted to keep slaves still in slavery, okay. So I just want to get that information out to you. So right now in 2020, as you guys see in some of these governments that are giving these tyrant restrictions, like Governor Cuomo, what is the future that we want, okay? And what do we look for in the future, okay? Because I think a lot of people are really starting to forget the pre-life that we had before COVID, and how we were so free spirit, and you laugh with your friends even though your friends like something that you don't like. We don't condemn each other, we don't judge each other based on our characters, okay. We all acknowledge that we are all different, and that God said, be at peace with man as much as it is up to you, okay. So if you want to tolerate, if you can't tolerate certain people, or you want to go against it, then you're basically creating more enemies, okay? But if you're willing to know that, okay, that's another human being like you, they just like, different color, or they like different certain things, respect them for it, okay? And those were also the days that we would tell each other the truth. If your friend was doing something wrong that could harm them later, you wouldn't hold back to tell them the truth, or to at least let them know that this is bad for you. Now, it doesn't mean you don't like them. It doesn't mean you hate them. It just shows that you are willing to tell the truth, but it's up to them to accept it or leave it, okay? Now, it doesn't give you any reason to reject it. So if they reject your advice, you don't hold that as a grudge and say, you know what, I don't like you because you disagree with what I am telling you, even though you're right, okay? It's a matter of saying it. Once you say it, it takes time for a person to wake up into it and realize that, okay, that person was really looking out for me, okay? Because the results will come later, and it will show that person, that what you're doing is good for you or bad for you, okay? This is how God works. And the other question that we should ask ourselves is, some of these things that are reminding us of, things that happened back in the days, like the civil rights movement, with people fighting for their freedom. And you have that one example in New York where some of the counties are being shut down while the other county still operates. And you have in Memphis, Tennessee, where some people are being threatened for certain things, it brings back that segregation that we had in the past. So it's almost like history repeating itself over again, okay? So if we look in the near future, most likely it's like history has started all over again, okay? But these are the things we should talk about. These are the things we want to discuss. These are the things that we want to hear from other people, so that we can lift our fear and not be an assumption. And it's not to condemn anyone or judge anyone, because of course God said, "Thou shalt not condemn or judge others based on their opinions." Okay, but you can rebuke, you can correct, you can speak the truth, and it's up to that person to accept it or to listen. As God also said, be slow to speak and quick to listen, okay? The only way we learn in this world is from others, from each other, okay? Now, there's some people who are really good listeners and willing to listen to the whole opinion. There's some people who just listen only to respond, okay? And in this stage of age, people have been so segregated, so it's like, you're either on this side or you're on this side, and nobody wants to listen to both sides, okay? Now, these are the signs of worse to come, okay? When we refuse to listen to both sides, when we refuse to acknowledge what is going on the other side of the fence, okay? In order to know if what is going on your end is actually good or bad, because then you can't tell the difference, this is where problems grows and escalate even more, okay? Right now, there's still a chance. So if the problem continues to grow and get deeper, it's not a good look for the country. And it's definitely not a good look for the rest of the world as well, okay? But, of course, this is the waiting game. So we're just going to wait what's going to happen on January 5th with the re-election of Georgia, and also who's going to be inaugurated on January 20th. Because January 20th by noon, somebody has to be inaugurated, okay? That's by the Constitution. The only way we're not going to know who our president is going to be at that time is if they break a tie, okay? If Joe Biden and Trump breaks a tie, then the House of Representatives takes over the office until we have a president. So these are all the updates I wanted to give to you guys today. So stay tuned for more update next weekend, and we want to, continue to give you our effort of news as much as we can here at Temper Africa TV and LA9ML Talk Show. So if anyone want to comment below, or if there's some questions you have or anything that's going on, feel free to reach out to us, okay? because we want to continue to talk about these topics as we are all different human beings with different opinions. So we want to come together, and whether you're a far left liberal or whether you're a conservative or whether you're a socialism, you know, whichever way you operate in this world. So have a wonderful night, and we'll see you all again next weekend.
Du nouveau à Minneapolis, Tempo Afrique Travel. Vous voulez voyager? Achetez vos billets d'avion à l'agent de voyage Tempo Afrique Travel. Avec l'agent de voyage Tempo Afrique Travel, pas de problème de connexion, pas de problème de transfert de vol. Avec l'agent de voyage Tempo Afrique Travel, c'est le voyage en toute tranquillité, en toute beauté, de votre maison jusqu'à votre destination. Votre satisfaction est notre plaisir.